In these nondescript-looking boxes in the DEA evidence vault in San Diego, about 1,000 pounds of marijuana from Thailand. Thai sticks, they are called. All this was seized, packed just the way it is, from the basement of Louis Villar when he was arrested about 2 years ago. All this was worth $50,000 in Thailand, but on the streets in the U.S. today, it would gross $3 million. No longer dealing with mere motorboats to Mexico, Lou Villar and the Coronado Company were now crossing oceans in fishing boats and yachts and motor vessels. They had their own accountants, investment counselors, and they had a special camaraderie. Lee, did you smuggle for the money or for the thrills, honest? Why did you get in?
It was really for the thrills or for the camaraderie because we had such a great crew. We really only considered it a product. It was a bunch of bales, boxes, tins, whatever it would be that had to be brought in. And we attacked each project just as that, as a specific objective to be accomplished.
There's nothing like the excitement of seeing a 20-ton load, you know, going down. 15, 20 tons of weed moving. It's real exciting.
It was not just exciting, but dangerous. After 5 years of smuggling, in 1977, the U.S. government indicted Villar and 25 members of the Coronado Company. Despite warrants for their arrest, Villar and some of his partners just moved up the coast to Santa Barbara. And using their new phony identities, they kept right on smuggling, and surprisingly, they kept right on living it up. Some took up polo.
Drills one right down there in front of the goal.
Lou Villar collected a fleet of Mercedes and Ferraris, plus real estate here in Santa Barbara, as well as on the East Coast resort island of Hilton Head, South Carolina.
We renovated this new beach house and then built a guest house at the back of the lot.
Mike Agnor spent 2 years supervising construction of Lou Villar's oceanside estate on Hilton Head.
He had like I felt was like a complex about, he had to be number one with all his material possessions, his million-dollar homes and all of his cars.
When Agnor went to Villar for a long overdue payment, he was told his wealthy boss was not going to pay him, that he'd lost a lot of money.
That's when he told me about being involved in drug smuggling. He explained to me then that what had happened, that they had the drugs they'd smuggled in from Thailand on a boat. The weather was real bad. They loaded it up on a couple semi-trucks, and the road collapsed. They couldn't get the drugs out.
Angry because Villar owed him $55,000, Agnor went to the federal government and provided information that led authorities to the fugitive, led them here to Lou Villar's home in Santa Barbara. On November 5th, 1981, they arrested Villar and several of his partners. What did you find on them the day that you people picked them up?
About $800,000 in cash, close to half a ton of Thai sticks in one of the houses that we searched.
Larry McKinney is a U.S. drug enforcement agent who is part of the presidential task force still investigating the Coronado Company. They operated for about 10 years?
Yes.
And grossed how much?
Approximately $96 million.
Louis Villar was held in federal prison in San Diego on $5 million bail. Phil DeMassa, a criminal attorney in San Diego, represented him, and he was stunned by what Villar planned to do.
What he wanted to do was to do anything possible with money to get out, to bribe the judge, to bribe the U.S. attorney, later to bribe a congressman or the parole board. Those are the kind of things that Lou had in mind in order to get out of jail.
Unable to buy himself out, Lou Villar was sent here to the federal penitentiary at Terminal Island to serve a 10-year sentence. Villar had agreed to plead guilty and to give up all his millions in illegally acquired property, over $4 million worth, to avoid the threat of 45 years in jail. Jack Palladino is a private investigator who worked on Villar's case for attorney Phil DeMassa.
When he first realized that he wasn't just going to get out, that he wasn't going to use the money that had bought him all the houses and the wealth and the cars. I mean, this is a man who owned, they estimate he owned 10, 20, 30 automobiles at one time. He had his own mechanic. And he said to me, he said, I'm not going to do the time. Somebody else is going to do my time.
And that's just what happened. Lou Villar, the man on the left, was released on bail because he agreed to talk, to testify against his former students and some others. Lee Strimple was still in prison when Lou Villar got out.
I was going to a court appearance, and I believe it was my arraignment. And I ran into Lou Villar in the elevator at MCC.
The Metropolitan Correction Center.
Yes.
And he was there to...
He was standing in the elevator in his civilian clothes, his designer jeans, and the way that I've seen Lou so many times.
What did he say to you?
He looked me right in the eye and shook my hand and says, "Hi, Lee, how are you doing?" He says, "Don't worry, kid, just hang in there, everything's gonna be okay."
And after that?
And after that, I spent 6 months locked down on the 9th floor at MCC.
In June of '83, here in the federal courthouse in San Diego, after turning government witness, Lou Villar was resentenced. He was released from serving all jail time. He was granted unsupervised probation, absolved of IRS fines, allowed to keep his wine collection stored here, allowed to keep the opulent furnishings of his home, a Mercedes and $300,000 from the sale of his Hilton Head estate. What could Villar, the man on the left, give the U.S. government in exchange for his freedom and the return of the property he had acquired through drug dealing? He could rat on his attorney, Phil DeMassa, a man who had a reputation for successfully defending drug dealers. Last spring, a squad of federal agents descended on DeMassa's law offices. The U.S. government said that they were looking for evidence of DeMassa's direct involvement in the Coronado Company. But they seized 95 boxes of files, which included material on every one of Phil DeMassa's clients.
They took every file for 13 years of my practice. They took 15 years of my life out of this office with them.
Well, this is an example of government out of control.
Attorney Barry Tarlow is defending Phil DeMassa, who is now the main target of the U.S. government, even though a federal judge has declared the search of his office unconstitutional.
You know, nothing like this has ever occurred in this country. This is the most pervasive, the most intensive ransacking of a law office that has ever gone on in the United States. This search was an obscenity. I mean, can you imagine what would happen if, for example, they bugged the confessional booth to listen to what you told your priest, to listen what you told a psychiatrist? This is the same thing. People come to a lawyer and they want their confidences to be private. They seized 250,000 documents involving 1,100 separate clients.
Who put them on to you?
Villar.
And Villar says that you, DeMassa, are in it up to your hips.
That's what he's saying, but it's untrue.
You worked for Villar, too.
I didn't work for him.
You didn't turn him
represent
down.
Of course not.
Well, don't you
That's
think-
my job. I represent people charged with crimes.
You served only as...
A lawyer,
period.
period.
In fact, we found several problems with Villar's allegations against DeMassa. But one of his charges is supported by another smuggler-turned-government witness, Lance Weber, who is still awaiting sentencing. You got some money from your partners to keep you from snitching, $180,000?
$180 or so $1,000 cash in a suitcase, sealed.
Got that from whom?
From an attorney.
Phil DeMassa?
Yes. He gave me a suitcase. This is yours. We didn't discuss what was in it. He said, "Oh, this is yours."
On the advice of Barry Tarlow, Phil DeMassa declined to comment on any of Weber's specific allegations, and the Department of Justice declined to comment on Lou Villar and his deal with the U.S. government. Lou Villar, of course, declined to talk to us. We wanted to ask him about his transformation from teacher to drug king to government informant. He was the older guy.
Yes.
Did the recruiting, did the motivating, did the arranging, collected the money, paid it out.
Paid it, figured out, that's right, paid it out.
Paymaster. and then turned
And
on
we
it.
loved him.
And you loved him, obviously, and then he turned on you.
And then, yeah, he rolled right over on it.
And you smile about it.
It's not very funny, is it?